Hello everyone and welcome to today's stream. You'll notice something different about today's stream is that I'm using dark mode. I am hiding in my office with a migraine, so I'm off camera, hiding with dark mode enabled to hopefully get rid of my migraine. So today, what are we doing? We are going to work with Laravel Zero to interact with the Todoist API. So for those who don't know Todoist, it's a really useful task manager, I guess is the best way to explain it. I use it heavily. So I thought, what better way to use it than with a CLI? So Todoist is nice and simple. It does exactly what you expect it to do. It allows you to manage tasks. So they've got a couple of client SDKs by default. So they've got the Python and the JavaScript SDK, which is, yeah, it's fine. It works, but there's no PHP one. So I'm going to work on basically just interacting with the API directly because that's what I do best. So what have I done so far? I've got a Laravel Zero project. I have enabled the HTTP add-on and the auto updater. Other than that, I've installed one of my own packages called SDK Tools. It doesn't do too much, but it does enough for what I need it to do. It basically just helps you make better SDKs by allowing you to build stuff and interact and do what you need. It's just a bit of a shortcut for me. What else have I done? I have created a Todoist service class which accepts a request into its constructor, and then it can send a request using an enum called method, which comes from said package called of SDK tools. Alongside that, it accepts a URL and an optional body, which we pass through here. That is all that does. Also, I have created, as you can see here, is all of that good stuff. So return new Todoist. The request is going to be the base URL as JSON. We're going to accept JSON. We're going to use a token that we get from config, which we'll get onto next. And we're going to set our user agent to Todoist CLI PHP. So we've got a config contract that will just basically detect your home environment, where that might be. And then in that path, we'll look for .config Todoist config.json. Now, what does this local config do? All it does is interacts with your local file system to get, set, read, and remove JSON data. It doesn't do much. We do have a command for that already. So if I come to command setup init command, you'll see that we inject the config contract. We get the API token for Todoist. If we don't have a token provided, then we want to basically just send an alert and say, okay, we can't do anything with that. Then finally, we will initialize the configuration by saying components start a task, initializing the configuration and say config, clear the config by default, and then set the token to be the token value. Finally, we are going to let them know that it worked and return success. Somewhat simple, a very simple process. So let's first up, I can never remember where my tilde command is. Will ls homework? Nope. Ooh. Okay, so we're going to have to go old school. Users Steve. Users Steve. Cool. And then we're going to go to .config. So as you can see, I've got a few things already. We've got Raycast, Tinkerwell. So if you have a look in like Tinkerwell, for example, it currently doesn't have anything in it. But what we want to do is PHP Todoist. Oh, come on. Todoist. If I just run that quickly, we can create a new command, create a test case, app name, build, rename, init, and test. So we want to init. What is your Todoist API token? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if we just ls in there, you'll notice that we've now got a Todoist directory. So if we go into Todoist, we've got a config. So if we go to that config JSON and we just cat that quickly, you'll see that token has been stored. So now that we know we can actually work with that directory, we can store that config value, we know that we can then pull that into our service over here, and all is good. So if we go to the API documentation, I'm just going to reorganize this a minute, put that all the way over there. Right, now we're good. So authorization, it uses standard bearer token. That's great. It's how I've set it up. So I want to be able to get a list of projects. So projects, get all projects. We just go rest v2/projects. Now, you could use something like Saloon for this, and Saloon would probably be a really good use case for working in this approach. But I'm going to do it my way because I can. So I'm just going to say resources in there, and we're going to say we're going to create a project resource. So if we go project resource, this is kind of like if I'm not going to do any sort of of like Saloon, this is how I would do an API integration, just because it's what works for me and it's what I found works best. So we know that we're going to want to have something passed in on the constructor, and that something should be the private read-only Todoist service as service. So now that we've got our service kind of set up, we can say public function projects. That is going to return a project resource. So we can return a new project resource where the service is this. So we can say Todoist projects list as an example. And if you've read any of my content before, watched any videos of mine before where I'm doing API integrations, you will most likely be familiar with this approach. So if we come back over to here, all we need to do is get all projects. We just want to say projects, passing all of that. No sort of anything else to do with it. Just away we go. Projects, anything useful? Not right now. Cool. So list. What we want to do is say that our response is going to be not that. This service send. The method is going to be method get. The URL is going to be to projects, and we don't need to send a body. If that response failed for any particular reason, we want to then throw an exception, a specific exception. So we go exceptions, and we're going to say we are doing a Todoist API exception. This will extend the default exception. And the reason why I don't just do response throw is because I want to add a little bit of context. So we want to throw a new Todoist API exception. The message is going to be something went boop. The code will be, actually, what I'm going to quickly do here as well is just extract out a temporary variable. So exception equals response to exception. So then I can say exception get status, or get code, sorry. And then the previous will be that exception. Now that is being underlined for some reason. Null pointer may happen here. Jobbed. Int null. Okay, and if that fails, we're just gonna say I don't know, 500 for now. We can worry about that a little bit later on. So if we fail, we get this going on, which is fine. Likelihood of this failing, it's more likely to be something like a 403. And I think I do have a status. Yep, status unauthorized. We'll just pass back that value. There we go. And what this class does here, it's just got, let me just render all comments quickly. Here we go. So we've got all of the potential status codes coming from Mozilla Dev Docs. Each one's got a link. I literally went through. This is something of a fun project to do. So next, at this point, we have got a response. So for now, we will just return that response JSON. Now, that's not going to be the final result, but we want to test it. So PHP Todoist make command. All of these are going to be in a Todoist directory. So projects list command. And there we go. So if I explain that process quickly, we've got our setup commands, which are specifically around setting up our CLI, setting up our environment to be working correctly. Then we've got Todoist. Anything to do with working with Todoist will be within here. And then we're dedicating each resource to its own namespace. The reason being, we might have another root level command that we want to look at beyond setup and Todoist. We might want to do caching. We might want to do something else outside of the kind of constraints of setting up or interacting with that API. So if we look at this list command now, we can declare some strict types. I won't be scheduling anything, so I can just go ahead and remove that schedule method directly. Remove some of these comments that aren't really required. And we're just going to fix that whole file. This will be projects list. And the description will be list all projects from the Todoist API. And while I'm here, I am just going to save that to the dictionary because it'll annoy me if I don't. Finally, we return an int, and we will return command success. So if we just quickly run this command, What I might do actually is open this up in Warp in another window to make it a little bit easier. No, you're not going to see that very nicely. So we'll stick with how we're doing it. So clear this out, PHP to Todoist. So what we've got project list, projects list, and that's working. So this is just complaining that I'm on 8.3 and Xdebug isn't supported yet. So ignore that. I wish I could hide that, but I want to stick on 8.3 because it's the latest version. It's how I need it to work. So what we will do is we're going to import Todoist there. And we are going to say try and get projects by saying Todoist projects list. We will catch anything that is throwable as an exception. And if we do get an exception, we can say this components, and we're going to say error. The string is going to be the exception get message. And then we will return command failure. So first things first, let's try that again. Error, something went boop. Perfect. So if we come back to this project resource here, what we can actually do is just say exception get message. Now, in reality, this is probably an authorization thing. 401 forbidden. My API status is incorrect, basically. I'm not sure how to get that. Let me go quickly to Todoist. How do I get that? I can never remember. How do I get my API token? Authorization, blah, 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 from the integration sections. So I'm just going to copy that link, and I'm going to do it in another window so that I can keep it super duper secret. Integrations, developer, copy API token. And I'm going to open Warp up in another window quickly just to kind of add that. I'm not sure if I like dark mode. It's just not for me. Todoist init. Yeah. Clear. Right. Now I can come back and test again. Sorry about that. Just had to go test that. Right. Do it again. And I'm not getting anything because it didn't fail. Perfect. So coming back to our list command. At this point, I'm going to just do a quick die and dump on projects. And we've got projects, which is fantastic. So at this point, we want to think about how do we turn this array data that we're getting back into something that's usable. I like to use data transfer objects, or as I call them data objects, because I'm not transferring them anywhere. I'm just kind of returning them. So I just say data objects. DTOs just, while it makes sense and everyone knows what it means, it just doesn't work for me. So I'm just going to create a new project, and we will just model this out. So we can say public function, drop in that constructor, and from here we can just read from this here. So all of that data we want to look to model. So I'm just going to drop that there so it's visible. So public read-only string ID. Public read-only string name. Public read-only int comment count. Public read-only int order. This is how easy it is to do this sort of stuff. So public read-only string color, and I'm going to match the spelling as much as it pains me. Read-only Boolean is shared. Public read-only Boolean is favorite. I hate American spellings. So public read-only string parent ID. Public read-only Boolean inbox project is team inbox. So public read-only. Jesus, what is going on with my typing today? I apologize. Migraines just really don't help me type. Team inbox. View style is a list. So public read-only string view style, and then finally we got a URL. Then we can say public read-only string URL. So at this point, we've got everything that we need to create this object. I like to add helper methods here. So I have a public static function from an array. This array comes in as data, and it needs to return a project back. So I also like to come in and actually model this out properly. So we've got an ID as string. So if we just kind of match this over here. So then we have a project ID as string, or nullable string apparently, or parent ID, sorry. Parent ID as nullable strings. Where's that parent gone? ID, parent ID. It's a nullable string. Order as an integer. Color as a string. Name as a string. Really? Ring. Comment count as an int. Is shared as a Boolean. There you go, this might be quicker. Is favorite as a Boolean. Then we can say is inbox project as a Boolean. Is team inbox again as a Boolean. URL as a string. View style as a string. And there we go, just drop that down now. So we've now mapped out the array shape for the response coming back. And what we can do here is just say return new project, where the ID is data ID. Next up, just give us some real estate here. Collapse this. Next up, we've got our name. Name, data, and because we've done the array shape, as soon as we drop that N in there, we've got the name available. Next up, we have the comment count. So comment count, data, comment count. And following this kind of method just really helps to understand everything that's going on in the API. Data, color. It just keeps it really clean, really easy to work with. Is shared, data, shared, is favorite, data, favorite. It just makes it so easy. Right, parent ID is data, parent ID, or null. Team inbox data is team inbox. inbox project, data is inbox project, URL is data URL, and finally we've got view data view style. Now the only thing we now need to do is sort those arguments, and we're looking good. Everything is fantastic at this point. So obviously having objects is great. Yet Sparsee's Laravel data will handle all of this for you. But I like to do it manually because I want to be able to understand all of the moving parts instead of going, give me a package because I can't be bothered. Right, finally, we got a two array, which will return an array because it is useful to be able to return this data as an array because we've transformed some of it. So ID will be this ID. Name will be this name. I'm also going to say color. I'm returning a subset. I don't want to return everything. And we're going to return the view as well. So this view style. All the parent stuff, favorite, shared, we can expand upon later if we find we actually need or want that. So what we're going to be returning is an ID, which is a string, a name, which is a string, color, which is a string, and a view, which is a string. And there we go. Suddenly, we're looking good. So what we can now do is, because if we look at the response, we're just going to get an array of objects coming back. So we can collect them all and map over each one. So that means that this will return a collection. And when we're mapping, we will say function array of data, and what we will return is a project from array where the data is data. That's simple. So now if we do that again, we should get an object. And there we go. We've got a collection of objects typed as required. Quite easy, right? Not the hardest thing in the world to do. So if we come back to our list command, what we can do at this point is we can look at something like, if we go to like the Laravel Zero.com, I think that's how it's spelled. There we go. So get started. If we have a look at how we want to display things, let's look at usage quickly. There's commands. We understand how to do all of that stuff. I want to look at output. So let's have a look at this components. What do we have? We've got bulleted list, choice, confirm, 2-column detail could be a good option here. So we've got first and second. So what we can probably do at this point is say projects. We're going to use each one. For each one, we're going to have a project. And we're going to say 2-column detail is first ID, second project ID. I mean, you could do a table, but, you know, it's kind of up to you at this point. Tables are fine, but they're not perfect. You know, they're a little bit kind of old schooly, perhaps. And we're just going to say color. This is like really just random at this point. The most important thing is the ID that you're going to want to capture. And then finally, the view mode, we're just going to say view. So if we just give ourselves a little bit of real estate, list. So this works well. but it's a bit of a mishmash, mosh, whatever you want to call it. So perhaps we can say this component, is there anything else? Is it like a section, or we've got app info, options, description, run, schedule, task, argument, call. You want to kind of like break it out a little bit, right? Configure, complete, content, context, new line, secrets, alias. It'd be cool if you could have like a gap. I wonder if there is. Where's the term end? It would be nice. Is there any documentation? Okay, so style, ask, terminal, margin, width, display, flex. So there's some stuff that I can do. It's almost like I need a list, really, isn't it? Would be cool to be able to output this a little bit easier. For now, I'm just going to leave it as is because the important thing right now is that it's working and I want to see what I can do. So I won't get too bogged down in those details. As you can see, we can get what we need and okay, this is my inbox and I want to go get it. So next up, let's go to the API docs again. And let's say we want to create a new project. Probably useful. So string, color, colors guide, view style, list board. So what we've actually got here is a couple of things that we can turn into enums. So we can have a view enum, which will return a string. We've got a list, and we've got a board. So we can refactor our project over here, where this view is now going to be a view. So where we get the view, we can say view. I think we can just say from, where the value is that. So when we return it, we're actually returning a view. And if we come up here, make sure that is correct, that is all good. So now if we do this again, couldn't be converted to string, that is fine. So if we come to this list command, view, name, and we are back on it. So the same thing can be done with the colors. So if we come over and look at the color guides, these are the colors that it works with. So we could actually go ahead and create a color enum. I'm not going to do this right now because you don't want to just watch me build enums. That would be boring. So I'll look at doing that afterwards. So we can list them out. That's great. But next we want to look at actually creating. So PHP to do ist, and we want to do a create command. So if we come up to the create command, we're going to say projects create. Let's just fix all of that. But that, we don't want to schedule anything. We'll fix that in a minute. And we're just going to remove all of that. So this will return an integer. And finally, return a command success right at the end. So this needs that Todoist service injected. And now we start asking questions. So we can say, create a new project, like that. So at this point, what we want to do is start asking questions. So if we look at creating a new project, the only thing that's required is the name itself. So we can say, name is going to be this components ask. The question is going to be, what do you want to call this project? Doesn't have a default. And that's it. So we can do it. If there is no name, then we want to this components error. The error is going to be your project requires a name. And then, what's going on with my typing? Command invalid. There we go. Then if we do have it, we can start to work through the other things. So the color, for example. Ask the color. Ask the parent ID, if any. Do you want this to be a favorite? And we'll have what view style do you want this to be? So there's a couple of options that we've got there that we're going to have to think about. So asking the color, that's a select input. That's not so bad. What we could probably do at this point is look at something like composer, require Laravel prompts, something like Laravel prompts, just to work with. So if we say Laravel prompts, go and have a look at the prompts, what we could do is something like the first thing that we want to ask is asking the color. So that would be a select. So we want to do a select option here. So how could we do this? We're going to limit the colors for now by just using this. We're going to have berry red. I said I wouldn't do this, but I'm going to have to do a little bit. Berry red is berry red. Case red is red. And we're going to go for green as well. Case green is green. We'll worry about filling in all the gaps a little bit later. So ask the color. So color is if is there like a, let me go back to prompts quickly, and is there a confirm? Yes. So if confirm, let's just go have a quick look. And the label is going to be, do you want to assign a color? If we do, then we're going to say that our color is select. The label is going to be color, and the options are going to be, how do we need to put that? So select. we have got an array of just strings there. So color, I wonder if we just say color cases. Required is false. Scroll, what is going on there? Scroll is true. Is that a Boolean value or not? Scroll 5. Okay, so you need an amount. So yeah, we'll stick to the default. What else does it? Validate, hint, required, options. That works. It's probably going to ask me to sort. Yeah, sort arguments. There we go. So let's see what this now does. So PHP to do list projects create. So if we say nothing, it fails. Test. Do you want to assign a color? No. Test. Yes. And now we've got a failure. Argument required must be true or a string. So we should just be able to drop that. Test. And it's having issues with string must be of type string, color given. Okay, so for this, we want to say, for now, I'm just going to say public static select, which will return an array. I need to add the word function, obviously. I need coffee. That's what I need. Coffee solves all problems. I should be able to do like an array column, I think, where the array is self cases and the column key is name. Something like this. Let's see if that works. So now let's go through and say select. See what that does. Test, yes. Hey, berry red, red or green. Fantastic. So a little bit of a speed run through there. So all of these other ones I'm not going to worry about right now because yeah, it's kind of the same as what I just did. So next we want to say, we actually want to go ahead and create this next. Actually create the thing. So if we come over to our resources and our project resource, what we want to do at this point is say public function create. And this wants to return a project back eventually. So we want to be able to get that payload. So data objects, services. I like to create something called payloads. We'll say projects, and we're going to have a create payload. So public function instruct public read-only string name. We know that name is required. Make it read-only. So now if we come back to this, we've got parent ID as an option. Public, that should be a string, but it's a nullable string as a parent ID. We've then got a string for the color. So public null color. Then we've got is favorite, which is a Boolean. So public Boolean is favorite. Then view style, public null string view. Actually, null view. We do have that enum already. So because that is the only required thing, I'm going to set the defaults on these as what I think they should be. By default, it won't be that, and this will also be null. Actually, no, I'm going to say view board as default, like that. So fix that whole file. So then what we want is a way to transform this to an array that we can send over as a payload. So return name, this name, parent ID as this parent ID, color as this color question mark name. Need to do that. Is favorite. This is favorite, and then the view style is going to be this view name. Done. Finally, we want to add that array shape because array shapes are important. We're going to have a string there, parent ID as null string, color as null string, is favorite as a Boolean by default, and then the view style is going to be a string. And that should all look okay. So our project resource here, we want to accept this create payload. Our response is going to be this service send. The method will be method post. The URL is going to be just projects, and the body is going to be payload to array, like that. So again, we're just going to copy and paste this for now. We will look at making this less repeatable later. So at this point, we've done all that, and then finally, we want to return project from array data response JSON. Let me just tidy that up, do all that. So nice and easy to do at that point. So the create command, we actually want to create it. So we can say Todoist projects create. The payload is going to be a new create. Where the name is name and the color is color. At this point, we've matched that. So what we actually want to do here is say color from value color. Awesome. So this it's set color. If it is set, do that. Otherwise, say no. There we go. Projects create. And then we say this components info. What we're going to do is get project here. And the string that we pass back is going to be project name has been created. ID, project ID. Just something like that. So clear that again. create test for stream. Yes, I want to assign a color and I want it to be green. So green is not a valid backing value for app enum's color. So apparently I want to get the value, not the name. My bad. That is my fault. Test for stream. Yes. Green. Now what? Color format is not valid. So the way I am sending that color let's go have a look. Color. The name. That should be coming through correctly. So what I'm going to do is where we're creating it here, let's just do a quick die and dump on the payload to array so that we can understand what's being sent. Test, yes, green. Green is okay. So when we are doing that, that should be value. That is where I went wrong. Oh, silly Steve. Right, okay. Create test for live stream. Yes, I want a color and I want it to be green. Project test for live stream has been created. So now if I come over to my Todoist board, test for live stream has been created. Just like that. I am working with that API and it works well. Awesome. So I've got a lot of kind of underlining stuff going on, which is a problem for later, perhaps. So what else might we want to do with this API? We kind of want to say we can get projects, we can create a project, all of that fun stuff that we might want to do. Sections, we can look at sections, tasks, comment, labels. I think tasks might be a useful one here. So we want to say get active tasks. We can do lots of filtering. So let's start that part. So let's just kind of close all of those. And the first thing we'll do is create that command. PHP Todoist make a list command for tasks. As you can see, the structure is quite clean, quite repeatable. So what we can now do is say tasks list. We can declare strict types, fix the whole file, and just do this. What I'm going to do is this name will be get a list of all active tasks from the Todoist API. And what I want is that schedule to be gone because I don't want it. I don't want to schedule this. I mean, I could schedule it if I wanted to. If I wanted this to be like a long running thing, then I could quite easily do something. Success. Then we want Todoist to be in there. Right. So now if we say PHP Todoist tasks list, I wonder if it works. Todoist. Yes, it does. You can do a TL, which is a shortcut for the Symfony console underneath, which will just kind of match and fetch and give you everything. So all the required potential parameters, you can say, give me a list of IDs. the language, filter, label, section, project. So I might want to limit it by project. So if confirm where the label is, do you want to limit this? Actually, no, that's not the best way to do this. Maybe we could add an optional project in here. Believe it's like that. The project ID to limit to. So like that. So now let's just PHP to Todoist. We've got task list. We can say help tasks list. Project, the project ID to limit to. So we can pass that optional one in there. So now we want a task resource. This will probably be the last one because I'm coming up to that hour time frame. So task resource, public function, instruct. If you've got any questions before I finish up, please post now so I can kind of get to them once I've done this little bit. And make that read only. And we're going to say, for this one, we're going to say public function list null string for the project, which is going to be nullable by default. Then the response is going to be this service send. The method is method get. URL is going to be tasks. Actually, I'll make that a temporary variable. So URL equals tasks. And query parameters, so it can be like for now we'll just do like a, if we have a project, then we will say that the URL will also have a extension saying question mark project ID equals project, something like that. Nice and simple. Then we can just do another failed jobby. We might want to look at pulling this out soon. Yes, we'll do that. So then if we haven't, then we want to kind of just return that collection, return response collect for now. And we're going to call that responding collection. Come back to our list command. And what we want to do is just do a quick dime dump on Todoist tasks list like that. So Todoist public function task. Jesus, what's going on? Tasks. And then this returns that task resource. Then we will return a new task resource where the service is this. Right. So not enough arguments. Okay. So something I did something slightly wrong here. I believe it is that way around. Not enough arguments. Okay, so this is a part I always get wrong. Get started, console, arguments, optional by adding a question mark that side. Okay, so not like that, like that. Getting tasks, doing some stuff. We got my tasks. So I've got some tasks and it works. I can then look at creating that data object again. So if we come down to data objects, I can go create a new one called task. This can then be filled out. So public function construct. I mean, we all know it's going to have an ID, so we'll start with that. So public read-only string for an ID. And we'll just make that read-only. I'm going to say public static function from array, where the array has data, and it's going to return a task back. Return new task, where the ID is data ID. Stuff like that. And then we can start to define this array shape and start looking through the task itself. So we've got an ID, got loads of stuff that we can do, content, description, yeah, so much that we can actually do. But I'm not going to go through mapping out another data object because that would just be a bit of a pain for you. Task resource. So now what we can do is we can collect, map over each one so that the function gets an array of data and that it will return a task from array where the data is data. What we can also do here is we can add that return type to be task. That keeps that clean. So that when we come up to here, we can do TL. It's going to die and dump. And that'll give me the IDs. And we're good. We've got we're working with our to do API really easily. We can see IDs, we can get contents, and yeah, eventually we're going to be able to say, okay, mark something as done. But for now, that's about an hour working with Laravel Zero. As you can see, it's quite easy to do. I just want to see if there's a list component in prompts. Available prompts, attempts, confirm, select, suggest, search, multi-search, information, messages, info. We can do a table. Maybe we'll use table quickly. So what we can do is like a table where the headers is ID and the rows is Todoist tasks list. I will just stick to that for now, just to see if it works. Let's just do that. Okay, argument row must be of type console, table, array, task given. Oh, thanks, buddy. Thanks for enjoying. It's always fun to do. Okay, so it's going to complain, so I need to do a quick public function to an array, return an array, just return it this way. So that the ID is this ID, like that. Then this list command, what we can do is map over each one as task, and say task to array. This will return an array so that when we run that again, it should just give us everything that we need. We've got IDs and we can see stuff and all is good. So maybe what we can do here is just say that try tasks. Ooh, come on, learn to type today, Steve. Catch a throwable exception. Then what we can do is, I suppose we could use prompts. Error. The message is exception, get message, and return command failure. Then if we do have that, we can just say tasks map. Doing it that way, that is all good. Do it again. Fantastic. What we can also do is, don't know why that's underlining. So we can say project is going to be this argument where the key is project. That should not change it in any way. And we're good. So I'm just going to add all of this. Git add, git commit, working with the Todoist API. And we're just going to push all that up. So as you can see, it's quite easy to do. If I go to github.com, just Steve King, Todoist CLI. Ta-da! We have got, wow, that was a quick change in color, wasn't it? Let's just drop this in the chat so people can see it. And that is our URL. If you want to go look at the project, if you want to contribute to it, that is entirely up to you. I'm going to keep going with it because it's fun. I use Todoist heavily. This will be quite a useful tool for myself. If you want to join in, feel free. That is the repo. You can see how things work, how easy things are to get going. And also, obviously, I've got a couple of, I haven't been focusing on PHP stan and static analysis yet. I'll probably do something back out the other end of it later on. But we've also got like Composer Pint installed, so we can do all that. Add, git commit, and we say running code style, and push that. So have a look at the repo. You might find it quite useful. You can see that as actually, that going to do well. Do that. Why is it complaining? String null, array bool string, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so we'll just do that. This is complaining. Yeah, that's fine. We add commit cast arg to string. So as you can see, there's a pattern of how I do these things. This is how I do API integrations when I'm not using something like Saloon. If I want to kind of really be fine-tuned of how I'm doing these things, I create that service, I create the resource, I create the data objects, I create the payloads, I create the commands all namespaced in specific ways so that things are small individual bits of code that I can then unit test. I can then feature test whole commands, whole integration paths, and things are just quick and easy to replace. So if I wanted to swap from Todoist to Trello, it wouldn't be a big thing for me to worry about. Anyway, that is me. My migraine is almost gone, so I'm happy. Other than that, have a fantastic day. I'll see you all next time. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.